I want you to imagine just for a second that evolution had a design committee. A real one, with meetings and blueprints and spec sheets, and someone in the back who is supposed to catch the bad ideas before they get approved. Because if that committee existed, there are some animals in the ocean right now that would be very hard to explain. Animals where you have to look at the spec sheet and just ask, honestly, how did this get through? A small fish that swims upright like it forgot which way fish are supposed to go. A predator with a head that looks like a manufacturing error. A soft, slow, brightly colored snack that should have been eaten out of existence millions of years ago. A walking lump that hunts by looking like absolutely nothing. A round, surprised-looking thing whose primary defense is to inflate. This whole video is about those animals, the designs that, on paper, should not have worked. The ones that look like evolution was either having a bad day, falling asleep on the quality control desk, or genuinely just messing with us to see if we were paying attention. And here is the twist. The thing that makes this video more than a list of weird animals. Every single one of these designs, every single one, secretly works. Beautifully in some cases, brilliantly in most. The animals that look broken are not broken. They are doing something the rest of us missed. In a niche the rest of us did not understand. And once you see what each design is actually for, the joke turns into something genuinely wonderful. So that is what we're about to do for the next 2 hours. 15 animals that should have failed, 15 explanations of why they did not. If that sounds like your kind of video, hit subscribe before we start. It is genuinely the single biggest thing that helps me keep making these. And when we are done, tell me in the comments which one you think is the most secretly brilliant. I read all of them. Get comfortable. Let's talk about some terrible decisions evolution made that somehow turned out to be the right ones. Imagine you are evolution. You have spent hundreds of millions of years figuring out what a fish is. By now you have basically nailed it. A fish has a horizontal, streamlined body, like a torpedo. It has a strong tail at the back for thrust, swimming side to side with powerful muscular sweeps. It has fins, used for steering, balance, and acceleration. It is fast, or it has the option of being fast when it needs to be. It moves through the water with efficiency and grace, because the water is dense, and pushing through it is hard. And any animal that is not efficient about pushing through it is going to lose. This is the fish blueprint. You have refined it. You are proud of it. You send it out to all your fish departments and tell them to follow it. And one department somewhere looks at the blueprint, ignores it completely, and submits this instead. Take a horse, the design pitch says. Now make it small, tiny. Now put a curled monkey tail on the back end of it. Now make it stand upright vertically in the water. Get rid of most of the muscle. Replace the strong swimming tail with that curled, useless-looking spiral that cannot swim at all. Shrink the fins down to little flickering nubs that look more decorative than functional. And the propulsion system, the thing that makes it move through the water at all, will be a small fin on its back that vibrates so fast you can barely see it, generating roughly the thrust of a polite cough. Now drop this animal into the open sea where everything around it is built for speed and survival, and see how it does. This is the seahorse. And I want to open this entire video with the seahorse because if you wanted one single example of an animal that looks on paper like it should have been quietly buried in the planning stages and never spoken of again, it would be this little creature. The seahorse appears to have looked at the standard fish blueprint, set it on fire, and built something else entirely. Let me walk you through the design problems, because there are a lot of them. Problem 1. The seahorse swims upright, vertically. The whole long, horizontal, streamlined torpedo idea that took hundreds of millions of years to evolve, the seahorse threw out. Instead of swimming the long way, it swims the short way, standing up in the water like it is waiting in line. This means it presents maximum resistance to the water at all times. Every direction it tries to move is into a wall of drag, because its body is oriented exactly the wrong way for efficient swimming. From a pure physics standpoint, this is the worst possible orientation a fish could have. It is like trying to drive a car sideways down the highway. It works, in the loosest sense of the word, but it is not what the design was meant to do. Problem 2. The tail. The seahorse has a tail, but the tail has been curled into a useless spiral. In every other fish on Earth, The tail is the engine. It is where the thrust comes from. The seahorse looked at the engine, decided it was not needed, and curled it up into a little decorative coil. Which raises the obvious question. If the tail does not swim, what is the seahorse using for propulsion? The answer is almost nothing. The seahorse moves itself around using a tiny fin on its back that flutters at extraordinary speed, generating just enough thrust to inch the animal forward against the current. In terms of swimming speed, the seahorse is one of the slowest fish on the planet. Genuinely. It can be outpaced by a leaf drifting in a mild breeze. If the seahorse needed to chase anything to survive, the seahorse would have starved a long time ago. And in the open sea, where speed is the difference between being a predator and being lunch, this is, by every reasonable measure, a catastrophic design flaw. Problem 3. The body is rigid. Most fish are flexible, undulating side to side as they swim. The seahorse is encased in bony plates, almost like a tiny suit of armor, which makes it stiff. So even the small movements other fish can make, the gentle bending of the body for maneuvering, the seahorse cannot really do. It is locked into a rigid vertical posture, fluttering one small fin, going almost nowhere. Problem 4, just to complete the picture. The head. It is shaped like a horse. Why? There is no functional reason for a fish to have a horse-shaped head. Evolution had endless options for what to put on the front of this animal, and it chose a tiny equine snout, complete with a long, narrow tube of a mouth. This is not how fish heads are supposed to look. This is somebody walking into the meeting halfway through and saying, "What if it had a horse face?" And the rest of the meeting being too tired to argue. So look at the full design. A small fish that swims vertically, has its propulsion engine curled into a useless spiral, moves at the speed of furniture, is locked into a rigid armored body, and has, for no obvious reason, a horse head with a long, thin tube for a mouth. If you submitted this animal in a design review, you would be asked to leave. It looks like the result of someone falling asleep at the drafting table and waking up halfway through a different project. It looks like the fish that lost the instruction manual and tried to assemble itself from memory. And here is the twist. The moment in every chapter of this video where the joke turns into the genuine fact. The seahorse works. Not in spite of all these design problems. Because of them. The seahorse is not built to chase. The seahorse is built to disappear. That vertical, rigid, slow-moving body, when wrapped around a piece of seagrass or coral with that curled, gripping tail, becomes one of the most effective ambush hunters in the shallow seas. The curled tail is not a useless spiral. It is an anchor. The seahorse uses it to grip plants and corals, holding itself completely still in the current while everything else moves around it, perfectly disguised against the background. The slow swimming is not a flaw. It is camouflage in motion. A fast-moving fish would be obvious. The seahorse drifts and clings and barely moves at all, and that is exactly why nothing notices it. And then there is the tube mouth, the absurd horse face. That long, narrow snout is one of the fastest, most precise feeding mechanisms in the entire ocean. The seahorse hunts tiny prey, small shrimp and plankton drifting in the water, and when one drifts close enough, that ridiculous-looking horse snout fires forward and creates a suction so fast that the prey is inhaled in milliseconds before it can even react. The seahorse is, functionally, a slow-moving sniper. A motionless, anchored ambush predator that has traded speed entirely for stealth and precision strike. The bad design is a great design, just for a completely different game than the one most fish are playing. And then, because we cannot end this chapter without it, the final twist that makes the seahorse genuinely unique among vertebrates. The males are the ones that get pregnant. The female deposits eggs into a pouch on the male's belly, and he carries the developing young in his own body until they hatch out. Of all the things this animal was going to do that broke the fish blueprint, this is the one that I think evolution did purely to see if anyone was still paying attention. That is the first bad design. The fish that missed the memo. A small, upright, slow-moving, rigid, horse-headed creature with a useless-looking tail, a ridiculous face, and an absurd reproductive arrangement that ignored every standard fish rule and built something that, against every reasonable expectation, works beautifully. If a design this broken can work, by the way, the rest of this video is going to be a lot of fun. Tell me in the comments what the strangest fish you have ever seen in person is, because the Seahorse is just the warm-up. Welcome to the bad designs. There are 14 more. Most fish, evolutionarily, are athletes. I want you to picture the standard fish survival training program. You spend the early millions of years working on speed. You develop streamlined musculature, an efficient tail, the kind of explosive acceleration that lets you escape predators when they appear. You train your reflexes. You build endurance for the long swim. You learn maneuvering, how to turn fast, how to use your body's flexibility to twist away from a strike at the last second. By the time you graduate from fish training, you are a lean, fast, hydrodynamic survival machine. That is the standard fish resume. Speed, reflexes, agility, fitness. Now, somewhere in the evolutionary training facility, there was apparently one fish that just did not show up. Skipped the speed workouts, skipped the agility drills, did not train its reflexes, did not develop a sleek body, did not build a strong tail. When the instructor asked what the plan was, this fish apparently said, and I am paraphrasing, "I am going to inflate into a ball, become slightly toxic, and hope for the best." And then it walked out of the training facility, and astonishingly, that strategy has worked for it ever since. This is the pufferfish, and the pufferfish is one of my favorite bad designs in the entire ocean because it represents the exact opposite of how a fish is supposed to solve its problems. The standard fish solves the predator problem with athleticism. The pufferfish solved the predator problem by becoming an emergency balloon system with a chemical legal department. Let me lay out the design issues, because they really are remarkable. Problem 1. The pufferfish is slow. Not modestly slow, like the seahorse's serene ambush stillness. Just slow. It paddles around the reef with two small fins on either side, using them like a person rowing a small boat with their hands. It is not gliding. It is not jetting. It is dog paddling. The body is rounded, not streamlined. There is no muscular tail flicking it through the water. The pufferfish's whole locomotion looks like an animal that got the job of being a fish, but did not really commit to the cardio portion. Watch one swim, and you will notice immediately that it is making basically the worst possible use of the water around it. Every other fish in the same scene is gliding past it like it is parked. Problem 2. The body shape. A normal fish is shaped like a torpedo, the entire form optimized for cutting through water. The pufferfish looks like a slightly deflated water balloon with a face drawn on it. There is nothing aerodynamic or hydrodynamic about it. It has none of the lines, none of the taper, none of the visual signals you associate with a fast-moving animal. It looks frankly like the prototype model that someone forgot to refine. Like the fish that was supposed to go back to the design department for one more pass and instead got accidentally shipped. Problem 3. The face. I have to mention the face because it is part of the comedy. The pufferfish has a face that looks, at all times, vaguely surprised. Large eyes, set high with a permanently startled expression. Not menacing, not predatory, not anything that signals "do not eat me" in the way that other animals signal it. The pufferfish looks like an animal that just walked in on a conversation about itself and is processing what it heard. It looks harmless. It looks like an easy meal. So here is what we have. A slow-moving, round, awkwardly shaped fish with a face that looks gently confused at all times, paddling around the reef like it has all the time in the world, in a sea full of fast predators that should, by every standard of how survival works, have eaten it out of existence millions of years ago. This animal looks like it failed every survival test a fish is supposed to pass. The design appears to be, by every conventional measure, broken. And yet, the pufferfish is thriving. It is everywhere. The various pufferfish species are abundant across the world's seas, and they are not just surviving. They are doing well, in waters full of much faster and much hungrier animals. Which raises the question, how? What did the pufferfish do instead of training for speed? It installed an emergency balloon system, and it became a terrible meal. Here is the famous trick, and I want to walk through it with the appreciation it deserves. When a predator finally decides that the slow, round, surprised-looking fish is an easy snack and lunges at it, the pufferfish does the most absurd thing imaginable. It rapidly gulps water into a specialized, stretchy stomach, and in a second or two, it inflates into a rigid sphere several times its normal size. The harmless-looking little fish becomes a beach ball with a face. The mouth of the predator, which was opening to swallow a small target, now cannot close around the rigid spherical target the pufferfish has just become. The fish that looked like easy lunch has just made itself physically impossible to swallow. And then, because nature was clearly enjoying itself at this point, many pufferfish species also have spines that lay flat against the body normally and pop up rigid when the fish inflates. So now the predator is not just facing an unswallowable beach ball, it is facing an unswallowable spiny beach ball. The deflated cute version has become an inflated armored sphere, and the predator's only option is to spit it out and reconsider its life choices. But the emergency balloon is only the second line of defense, because in case the predator does manage to bite through or swallow the puffer anyway, the chemical legal department kicks in. Many pufferfish contain tetrodotoxin, one of the most potent natural toxins in the world. Far more deadly than cyanide by some measures, with no known antidote. The pufferfish is not just hard to swallow, it is potentially lethal to swallow. A predator that manages to get one down may not get back up. And other predators watching this happen learn the lesson very fast. So look at the full survival strategy now. The pufferfish skipped every athletic discipline a fish is supposed to master and instead invested in two things. One, the ability to become physically impossible to swallow on a few seconds' notice. Two, the chemical guarantee that anyone who manages to swallow it anyway will regret it terribly, possibly fatally. The pufferfish is not surviving by being good at the fish game. It survives by making the fish game completely unwinnable for anyone trying to play against it. This is, when you really sit with it, a brilliant design choice masquerading as a terrible one. The pufferfish looked at the standard fish problem of predators want to eat me and gave the most lateral solution possible. Not be faster than predators, not be hidden from predators, just be a colossal pain to eat, so they stop trying. And the strategy is so effective that pufferfish thrive in some of the most predator-heavy environments on the planet, doing their slow paddle around the reef with an expression of mild surprise, completely unbothered, because they know somewhere in their tiny pufferfish brain that no one is going to try them twice. If this is the kind of thing you came here for, the absurd design that secretly works angle, then do me a favor and hit the like button before we keep going. It is a small thing, takes 1 second, and on a long video like this one, those small taps from the people enjoying it really do tell the algorithm to show it to more people. No pressure, just if it has earned it so far. Then let's keep going, because the designs only get more unhinged from here. That is the second bad design. The guy who skipped training. A slow, round, surprised-looking fish that bypassed every athletic improvement available to its species and built instead an emergency inflation system backed by a deadly chemical defense, and somehow turned the worst-looking fish design in the sea into one of the most successful survival strategies on the reef. Skipping the gym worked out for one fish. Just this one. Picture a wildlife photographer's worst day. She is on a reef. She has the camera. She has the lighting. She has been told there is a frogfish in this area, and she really wants to get the shot. The problem is, she cannot find one. Not because there are not any there. There are. She has been looking directly at one for the last 20 minutes. She just does not know it. Because the animal she is hunting for, the frogfish, looks so completely indistinguishable from the surrounding sponges and rocks and algae that she has been swimming right past it, repeatedly, for the entire dive. From her perspective, she is searching an empty reef. From the frogfish's perspective, she is a slightly larger camera-carrying object that keeps obliviously cruising past, and it is genuinely starting to wonder if she is okay. This is the frogfish, and the frogfish is the chapter where the bad design framework gets to have its biggest laugh, because I genuinely believe the frogfish is what happens when evolution starts a project walks away to make a coffee, and never comes back. Let me try to describe what a frogfish looks like, and I'm going to do my best to be accurate because the design description is the chapter. The frogfish is a lump. That is fundamentally what it is. A lumpy, irregular, blob-shaped fish, often covered in warts, bumps, fringes, and skin flaps that look like algae or sponge tissue. Its body has no real definition. Where the head ends and the body begins is unclear. Where the body ends and the tail begins is also unclear. It does not have the streamlined form of a fish. It does not really have a form at all. It is shaped, more or less, like something a child made from clay and then sat on. And then it is colored to match whatever it happens to be sitting on: sponges, corals, rubble, mud. The frogfish does not so much swim through the reef as appear to be a part of the reef that, periodically, opens an enormous mouth. Let me list the design problems, because there are an unusually large number. Problem 1. The shape. There is no streamlining. Frogfish are not built to slip through water efficiently. They have no taper, no aerodynamic lines, no muscular structure pointing towards speed. They look from any angle exactly like an object that should not be able to move through water at all. The body says with great conviction that it has given up on swimming as a strategy entirely. Problem 2, and this is where the comedy really begins. The frogfish does not, in fact, swim very much. Instead, when it wants to move, the frogfish walks on its fins. I want you to picture this. It has small, modified fins on its underside that have been repurposed into something like little stubby legs, and it uses them to clamber awkwardly across the sea floor like a wet, lumpy puppet learning to take its first steps. This is one of the most absurd-looking forms of locomotion in the entire animal kingdom. A blob with legs, lurching across the bottom of the reef, looking like every step might be its last. The frogfish has the only walk in the ocean that consistently makes scientists laugh, and they are usually being very professional about animal behavior. Problem 3. Even when it walks, it is incredibly slow. The frogfish is not by any measure agile. It cannot dart. It cannot accelerate. It cannot retreat with any urgency. If a fast predator decided to make a meal of a frogfish, the frogfish would have absolutely no athletic recourse. It could not flee. It could not turn quickly. It could only sit there, looking like a confused lump, and hope the predator made a different choice. Problem 4. The face. I cannot skip the face. The frogfish has a face that, when you can find it on the lumpy body, is frankly a mess. The mouth is enormous, taking up most of the head. The eyes are small and look like they were added at the last minute. The whole arrangement gives the impression of an animal that was assembled by a committee that could not agree on what a face should look like, so they just put everything on it. So putting it together. The frogfish is a lumpy, fringed, sponge-shaped, slow-moving, walking blob with a giant disorganized mouth that cannot swim properly, cannot run away, and looks like the project nobody was assigned to finish. By every standard of how a fish should look and function, this animal is a disaster. It looks like evolution started, paused, considered the work so far, and decided to leave it as is, because honestly, who has the time? And here again is the moment in this video where the joke turns into the genuine fact, because the frogfish is one of the most successful ambush predators in the entire ocean. It is not surviving despite its absurd appearance. It is thriving because of it. The bad design is, on closer inspection, an extraordinarily clever one, and it has been working brilliantly for an enormous span of evolutionary time. The frogfish's whole strategy is the disappearance. Its lumpy, fringed, sponge-textured body is one of the most effective camouflages on the reef. Sponges and corals are everywhere on the reef. Lumpy bumps are everywhere. The frogfish is essentially a small animated lump in a world full of stationary lumps, and in that world, it becomes invisible. Predators do not eat it because they cannot see it. Prey does not avoid it because they do not recognize it as a threat. The frogfish has solved the predator problem and the prey problem in the same move. The disguise works in both directions, and the slow walking is part of the trick, not in spite of it. Real swimming, with the rhythmic muscular motion of a fish, would betray its position immediately. Anything moving like a fish would be recognized as a fish. The frogfish, by abandoning swimming and adopting that slow, ambling, almost reluctant lumpy walk, moves in a way no other reef animal moves. The brain of a small fish swimming nearby simply does not register that the lump it is passing has just shifted positions. It just looks like a different lump now. The slow walk is invisible. The graceful swim would be a giveaway. And then there is the strike, which is the real punchline. The frogfish has a small fleshy lure, a modified spine on its head, that it waves in front of its mouth to attract prey. A small fish swimming past sees what looks like a little wiggling worm dancing above the seafloor and goes to investigate. It does not see the frogfish. There is no frogfish. There is only the wiggling little snack. And when the prey gets close enough, the frogfish's enormous mouth opens at one of the fastest speeds ever measured in vertebrate predation, generating a vacuum that pulls the prey inside in a fraction of a second. We are talking about a strike that happens in milliseconds, faster than the prey can perceive, faster than almost any other fish on the reef can execute. The slow walking lump has, when it actually decides to act, one of the fastest mouths in the ocean. So the frogfish is not, on closer examination, a bad design at all. It is a brilliant design that committed to a specific niche so completely that it sacrificed every traditional fish trait to optimize for it. Speed, sacrificed. Beauty, sacrificed. Streamlining, sacrificed. Recognizable face, honestly, sacrificed. But what it traded those things for is total disguise, perfect ambush positioning, and one of the fastest strikes in the sea. The lumpy, walking, sponge-shaped failure is, in reality, one of the reef's most successful hunters. And it has been doing this exact bit, looking like nothing worth noticing, for tens of millions of years. Tell me in the comments which animal you have ever looked at and just gone, what? Not in awe, in confusion. Because the frogfish lives in that category for me permanently. And I want to know which animal lives there for you. That is the third bad design. The lump that worked. A blob-shaped, walking, fringed, sponge-impersonating fish that abandoned every athletic fish trait in exchange for being unrecognizable as an animal at all, and turned that failure into one of the deadliest ambush strategies in the ocean. Looking like nothing is sometimes the best thing to look like. I want to present a hypothetical design pitch to you, and I want you to imagine you are an investor hearing it for the first time. The pitcher walks into the room. He says, "Here is my fish concept. I want you to picture a fish, but completely flat, like a kitchen table. And I do not mean small, I mean enormous. The largest version of this fish should be wider than a small car. The body will be a giant horizontal disc, basically a flying carpet, with two long pointed wings sticking out from the sides. We are going to give up the standard fishtail almost entirely. The whole animal will be a thin, fragile-looking pancake the size of a couch. Now, what is this fish going to eat?" The pitcher pauses, smiles. Plankton. Tiny, microscopic plankton. The most enormous, most delicate, hardest to maneuver fish design you have ever heard of will sustain itself entirely by filtering some of the smallest food in the ocean. Any questions? There would be questions. There would be a lot of questions. The first one would probably be, how is this enormous, fragile pancake going to survive in an ocean full of fast predators? The second would be, why a pancake at all? The third would be, do you know how much food a fish that big needs? And have you considered that you have made it eat the smallest possible food source? At this point, the investors would politely thank the pitcher and ask if maybe he had a different design they could look at instead. And then, somehow, against all reasonable judgment, the design got approved. The pancake got built, and the pancake got dropped into the ocean. And against every prediction of how it should perform, the giant, flat, fragile-looking fish turned out to be one of the most magnificent animals in the entire sea. This is the manta ray. And the manta ray is, in my honest opinion, one of the most beautiful examples in this whole video of a design that looks completely impossible on paper and turns out to be genuinely sublime in practice. Let me walk you through what looks wrong with the design first, because the comedy lives in the spec sheet. Problem 1. The shape. The manta is enormous and flat. This violates everything we just discussed in chapters 1 through 3 about fish being torpedo-shaped. There is no streamlining here. There is no cutting through the water. The manta is a giant horizontal plane, and a giant horizontal plane should, by every principle of how things move through dense media, be a disaster to push around. Imagine trying to swim by dragging a coffee table sideways through the sea. That is what the manta's body shape on paper looks like it should be doing. Problem 2. The fragility. The manta is enormous, yes, but it is also thin. Compared to its width, the body is not deep at all. There is no thick muscular bulk. The wings, those two huge pointed structures sticking out from the sides, are also relatively thin, almost membrane-like in appearance. The whole animal looks like something you should not roughhouse with. A larger predator that managed to get its jaws around any part of the manta should, by appearance, be able to do real damage. The manta does not have the heavy reinforced look of an animal that can take a hit. Problem 3. The food. The manta is huge, and huge animals normally eat huge food. The blue whale chapter aside, the typical rule is that big bodies need big calories. And the manta said, "No thanks, I am going to eat plankton. Microscopic plankton. The same food that tiny krill eat." The manta has set itself up to require enormous quantities of essentially the smallest food source available, which means it has to be moving almost constantly through plankton-rich water just to get enough calories to keep itself going. That is, on paper, a desperately inefficient way to feed an animal this size. Problem 4. The mouth. The manta swims with its mouth open. Just open. Held permanently agape like an animal that forgot how to close its face. There are two flap-like structures, called cephalic lobes, that extend out from the head and direct water and plankton into the mouth as the manta cruises forward. It looks, frankly, comical, like an enormous flying pancake gliding through the sea with its mouth hanging open, vacuuming up tiny food it cannot even see individually. It is not a dignified eating posture. So the spec sheet says, giant, flat, thin, fragile, plankton-eating, permanently open-mouthed pancake. By every reasonable measure of how to design a successful fish, this is one of the most baffling combinations on the list. And then it gets in the water and it flies. This is where this chapter becomes a beauty chapter and not just a joke chapter, because the manta in motion is one of the most extraordinary sights in the entire animal kingdom. The flat shape that should be clumsy is, in water, perfectly hydrodynamic. The huge wings beat in slow, powerful, hypnotic strokes that propel the manta through the open sea with a grace that genuinely does not look like swimming. It looks like flight. The manta flies through the water the way an eagle flies through the air, with long, deliberate, powerful wing beats, gliding between strokes, soaring through the open blue. The body that looked impossibly impractical on the spec sheet turns out to be perfectly designed for one of the most elegant forms of movement any animal on Earth has ever achieved. And the plankton diet that seemed inefficient is, in fact, brilliant. The manta does not need to chase. It does not need to hunt. It does not need to compete with other predators for fast-moving prey. It cruises, mouth open, through plankton-rich water, and the food simply enters as it flies. It has, in effect, opted out of the entire predator-prey arms race that defines the rest of the ocean, and chosen instead to harvest the smallest, most abundant food source in the sea, on its own terms, at its own pace, with no one trying to take it from it. That is not desperate. That is genius. And the manta is intelligent. It has one of the largest brains relative to body size of any fish in the ocean. It is curious. It investigates divers. It visits cleaning stations on the reef where small cleaner fish swarm over its huge body and pick parasites off its skin. And the Manta seems to know exactly which cleaning stations to visit, returning to favorites the way you might return to a barber. The big, flat, plankton-eating pancake is also somehow one of the more sophisticated and gentle minds in the ocean. So the Manta is the chapter that proves the bad design framework cuts both ways. Some designs look bad and are surprisingly clever survival hacks. The Frogfish, the Pufferfish, the Seahorse. And some designs look completely impossible on paper, like they should never have been approved, and then in practice turn out to be staggeringly beautiful. The Manta is the second kind. It is what happens when evolution took the most absurd design brief imaginable, an enormous, flat, fragile, plankton-eating pancake, and somehow turned it into one of the most graceful animals that has ever existed. That is the fourth bad design. The flat disaster that flies. A giant, thin, fragile-looking, permanently open-mouthed, plankton-eating pancake that should not be able to swim properly, much less elegantly, and that instead glides through the open ocean on enormous wings, harvesting the smallest food in the sea, looking like a creature made of pure flight. Some bad designs are bad designs, and some are pure magic in motion. You said, Chapter 5, Sea Slug. Imagine you are a predator on the reef. You are scanning your environment, looking for a meal. You have a mental checklist, refined over millions of years of evolution, for what makes good prey. Slow movement, check. No armor or shell, check. No teeth or claws or anything dangerous, check. Small enough to swallow easily, check. No obvious means of escape, check. No camouflage hiding it from you, definitely check. You see something on the reef that ticks every single box on the list. A soft, slow, unarmored, defenseless-looking creature, just sitting there in plain sight, doing essentially nothing. By every criterion of what makes prey easy, this animal is the easiest snack you have ever seen. You go in for the bite, and immediately, somehow, you are having the worst experience of your day. The animal you just tried to eat turns out to be packed with toxins so unpleasant that you spit it out, swim away in disgust, and then spend the next several days remembering that you should never, ever eat one of those again. You leave the encounter slightly poisoned, deeply offended, and one snack lighter than you started. You have just met the sea slug. And the sea slug is, in my opinion, the most beautifully comedic example in this entire video of an animal whose design on paper appears to have failed every single defense check available to it, and whose actual survival strategy is among the most absurd and chemically inventive in nature. Let me walk through the design review, because the design review is, again, the joke. Problem 1. No shell. Most mollusks, sea slugs included, descend from animals that had shells. Snails have shells. Clams have shells. Even cuttlefish have a remnant of one inside their bodies. The shell is, evolutionarily speaking, a fairly basic and very reasonable solution to the problem of having a soft body in a world full of teeth. And the sea slug, at some point in its history, decided it did not want one. It looked at the shell, said no thanks, and ditched it entirely. The sea slug is essentially what you get when you take a snail, remove the snail's only defense, and just leave the snail there, exposed. Problem 2. No speed. The sea slug is, like its snail cousins, profoundly slow. It does not glide through the water. It does not jet around. It does not even really swim, in most species. It crawls, slowly, across surfaces, at a pace that makes the sea cucumber look athletic. If a predator decided to chase a sea slug, the chase would last approximately 0 seconds, because the sea slug has no escape gear of any kind. There is no flee. There is no flight response that actually works. The sea slug has accepted, on a deep biological level, that running away is not going to be part of its strategy. Problem 3. No teeth, no claws, no weapons. The sea slug has no offensive equipment to speak of. It cannot bite anything. It cannot scratch anything. It has no spines, no stingers, no anything that would hurt an attacker on contact. The slug is not even pretending to be dangerous. It does not bristle, it does not posture, it does not threaten. It just sits there, looking soft. Problem 4. And this is the part that completes the comedy of the design. Many sea slugs are extremely visible. They are not camouflaged. They are not hidden. They are, in many species, some of the most brightly colored, intricately patterned, eye-catching animals on the entire reef. Vivid oranges, electric blues, glowing-looking purples. Patterns so elaborate they look painted on by hand. The sea slug, in addition to having no defenses, in many cases also makes itself impossible to miss. It crawls across the reef at a speed of approximately nothing, wearing colors visible from a great distance with no shell, no teeth, no claws, and no escape plan, essentially announcing its presence to every predator within sight. By every conceivable measure, this animal should have been completely eliminated from the gene pool tens of millions of years ago. The design appears to have failed at literally every level. It has no defense. It is impossible to overlook. It moves so slowly that even the worst predator could catch it without effort. The sea slug looks like the joke prey, the deliberately easy target evolution put on the menu for predators that just want a guaranteed meal. And it is, of course, none of those things. The sea slug is one of the most successful, most abundant, and most chemically sophisticated animals on the entire reef, and the bright colors are not a failure of camouflage. They are a warning. The very brightness that should make the slug an easy target is, in fact, the entire defense system. Here is how the trick works, and this is where the chapter pays off the joke. Sea slugs are loaded with toxins, irritants, and unpleasant chemical compounds in their tissues. Eating a sea slug is, for most predators, a genuinely terrible experience. The chemicals are bitter, irritating, sometimes outright poisonous. A predator that tries a sea slug once learns, with great clarity, never to do that again. And the bright colors are the advertisement. The slug is wearing, in the universal language of warning coloration, the unmistakable signal that says, in nature's billboard system, "Do not eat me. I am chemically unpleasant. Find lunch elsewhere." The slug does not need to hide. It needs to be unmistakable so that predators recognize it on sight and avoid it. The visibility is the defense. And here is the part that elevates the slug from clever to genuinely absurd. Some sea slug species do not even produce their own toxins. They borrow them. They eat animals that have defensive chemicals, like sponges or hydroids or even other stinging creatures, extract those toxins from their food without being harmed themselves, and store them in their own tissues. The slug is walking around the reef carrying chemical weapons it did not even manufacture, taken from its own meals, repurposed as its own defense. It is, essentially, a soft little animal that has decided the best survival strategy is to eat dangerous things and then become dangerous itself. The borrowed weapons system. The slug as the soft body that learned to wear the venom of others. So, look at the full picture. A defenseless, slow-moving, brightly colored, shell-less, weaponless animal that survives by being so chemically unpleasant to eat that predators learn, fast, to leave it alone, and that in some cases acquires those defenses by eating other dangerous animals and stealing their weapons. The design that looked broken on every level turns out to be a brilliant lateral solution to the survival problem, and the slug has been thriving on this strategy for an enormous span of evolutionary history. We are 5 chapters in now, which is a good place to ask, and I will keep it short. If you're enjoying this video, the absurd designs and the way they secretly work, subscribing now is the single best thing you can do to make sure more videos like this get made and the algorithm starts showing them to the right people. It really does help, more than I think people realize. Then let's keep going, because the designs from here only get more unhinged. That is the 5th bad design. The easy snack that is not easy. A soft, slow, unarmored, brightly colored, weaponless animal that survives by being chemically annoying to eat, sometimes by stealing the defenses of the creatures it consumes, and that has turned every apparent flaw in its design into one big, flashy, painted warning sign. Looking like easy prey is fine, if eating you is the worst decision a predator can make. Imagine you are hiring a fish. You have the job description. You want a sleek, fast, visually oriented swimmer with bright colors, sharp eyesight, and an instinct for clean blue water. You want a fish that looks impressive in good lighting, that catches the light off its scales, that performs the job of being a fish in the way the standard fish job description has always required. You are looking at candidates. You see the parrotfish, gorgeous. The angelfish, elegant. The wrasser, agile. The seahorse, well, the seahorse is its own thing, but at least it photographs well. And then this guy walks in. He is grey, or brown, or just kind of muddy-coloured, honestly. His eyes are small and frankly do not look like they work that well. He has no bright scales, no flashy fins, no streamlined predator silhouette. He looks like he was assembled from leftover parts. And the strangest thing of all, he has whiskers. Long, drooping, moustache-like whiskers hanging off his face like he is auditioning for a role in a different movie. He is shuffling at the bottom of the room, head down, snuffling at the floor like he lost something. You ask him what his strengths are. He says in a low voice that he is very good at finding things in the mud. You thank him for his time and call security. This is the Catfish. And the Catfish is the chapter where the bad design framework gets to make its most important point. Because the Catfish is only a bad design if you are hiring for the wrong job. Everyone who looked at this animal and laughed assumed he was applying to be a regular fish, in clean blue water, in good visibility, doing the standard fish work. He was not applying for that job. He was applying for a completely different job, in a completely different environment, where every one of his apparent flaws turns out to be exactly the qualification the position requires. Let me walk you through the Catfish's spec sheet, and then show you the job he was actually built for. Problem 1. The colors, or rather the lack of them. The Catfish is broadly not a pretty fish. It tends toward muted, drab tones, often grays, browns, mottled patterns. There is none of the spectacular color you see on coral reef species. Catfish are not photogenic in the way other fish are. They look, frankly, like they got dressed in the dark. Problem 2. The eyes. The catfish often has small eyes, in some species barely functional. This is, by the standards of most fish, a serious flaw. Fish use vision for almost everything: hunting, navigation, recognizing predators, finding mates. A fish that cannot see well is, on paper, a fish that cannot do the basic work of being a fish. Problem 3. The shape. Catfish are not streamlined. They tend to have flatter, broader bodies, often with downturned mouths, designed for poking along the bottom rather than darting through open water. They are slow. They are bottom-oriented. They do not have the elegant lines of a fast-swimming fish. They look like the cars in the rental lot that nobody wants to take. Problem 4. And this is the one that really sells the comedy. The whiskers. The catfish has these long, droopy, fleshy whiskers called barbells hanging off its face. They look completely out of place on a fish. They make the animal look perpetually confused, like it is wandering through life trying to remember what it came in for. The whiskers do not look like they belong on a fish at all. They look like the kind of thing you would draw on a fish if you were trying to make it look silly. So put together the design. A drab, slow, poorly sighted, flat-bodied fish with moustache-like whiskers shuffling along the bottom in the mud. In any beauty contest among fish, this animal would be eliminated in the first round. In any speed contest, it would be lapped. In any visual hunting contest, it would lose to almost everything else with eyes. The catfish, by the standards of the standard fish, looks like a design that should have been rejected. But here is the joke, and it is the chapter's whole turn. The catfish was never applying to be the standard fish. The catfish was applying to be a specialist in a completely different environment, one where the standard fish would actually do badly. Catfish, both freshwater and the marine species, live primarily in low visibility, sediment-heavy, often murky waters. The bottom of rivers, the mud of estuaries, the cloudy parts of the sea, places where, frankly, eyes do not help much because you cannot see anything anyway. Places where the elegant, sharp-sighted reef fish would be lost and confused. And in those environments, every one of the catfish's apparent flaws turns into a tool. The muted colors. Not a fashion problem. In murky water, you do not want to be flashy. Bright colors would just make you a target in environments where targeting is mostly chemical and tactile anyway. The dull palette is camouflage in the mud. The small eyes, not a flaw. Eyes are useless in cloudy water. The catfish is not investing in a sensory system that does not work in its environment, which is, frankly, smart resource allocation. Why grow great eyes for water you cannot see through? The flat body, not awkward. Perfect for poking along the bottom where the food and the activity actually are. A streamlined open water body would be useless in a place where the action is happening on the floor. And the whiskers. Oh, the whiskers. This is where the design reveals what it actually is. The catfish's barbels are not decorative. They are one of the most sophisticated chemical and tactile sensory systems on any vertebrate. They are absolutely packed with taste buds. The catfish does not just taste food when it eats. The catfish tastes its environment continuously, dragging those whiskers through the water and across the sea floor like a chemical sweep, sampling the surroundings for the signature of food, of other animals, of anything edible. In some catfish, the entire body surface has taste receptors. The animal is essentially a swimming tongue. It does not need to see what is around it. It can taste what is around it in real time with extraordinary sensitivity. This is the genius of the design. The catfish is not a fish that lost the visual race. The catfish is a fish that bet on a completely different sense and built itself around that bet. In the murky water where most fish would be functionally blind, the catfish is operating at full sensory capacity, reading the environment through taste and touch, finding food by chemistry, navigating by feel. The bottom of a muddy river is, for most fish, a sensory void. For the catfish, it is a rich, detailed, information-dense environment, full of chemical signals it can read like a book. So the design that looked like a failure is actually an exquisite specialist. The catfish is the fish that said no thanks to the clean blue water competition and went off to dominate the muddy bottom, where it has been thriving for an enormous span of evolutionary time. Bad design is only bad if you compare it to the wrong job. The catfish has the right job. The job description just does not look like what the other fish were applying for. Tell me in the comments, just to have some fun with this, have you ever met a person who seemed like a bad fit for their job until you realized they were actually built for a completely different one? Because that, to me, is what the catfish is. The applicant for the wrong job who was always brilliant at the right one. That is the sixth bad design. The applicant for the wrong job. A drab, slow, small-eyed, whiskered fish that ignored every standard requirement of being a successful open-water animal and built, instead, an exquisite sensory specialization for the muddy depths, where it reads the world through chemistry and touch, and where every apparent flaw turns out to be the right qualification for a job nobody else wanted. Bad design is only bad if you are looking at the wrong resume. I want to take you into evolution's design office for a moment. Picture the standard shark design sitting in front of you. It is one of the most refined predatory blueprints on the entire planet, and it has been working for hundreds of millions of years. The shark is sleek, streamlined, powerful. It has a torpedo-shaped body. It has a pointed snout that cuts through the water with minimum drag. It has sharp teeth, strong fins, a powerful tail. The shark, as a design, is essentially the apex result of an enormous evolutionary refinement process. By the time the standard shark was finalized, it was, by any reasonable engineering standard, one of the most beautifully optimized predators ever built. And then someone, somewhere in the design office, looked at this perfectly engineered predator, this living result of hundreds of millions of years of careful refinement, and said, "You know what we should do. We should take the head and stretch it out sideways. Not a little, a lot. We should pull the head into this wide, flat, dumbbell-shaped extension, with the eyes pushed all the way out to the far ends. So now, the shark, instead of having a streamlined, pointed face like every other shark in the catalogue, will have a head shaped like a hammer. A big, wide, completely unaerodynamic crossbeam, mounted on the front of an otherwise perfect predator design. The rest of the design team in the meeting must have looked at each other. Someone surely asked, "Why?" Why would we take the cleanest, most refined predator silhouette in the ocean and just stretch the front of it out into a kitchen tool? Has anyone tested whether this even swims properly? Does it create drag? Does it look ridiculous? It looks ridiculous. And somehow, against every reasonable instinct of how to design a shark, this proposal got approved. The blueprint was finalized, and the hammerhead shark walked out of the design office, head first, wider than its own shoulders, into a sea full of other sharks that had been designed properly and started doing remarkably well for itself. This is the hammerhead, and the hammerhead is one of the best examples in this whole video of a design that, on first inspection, looks like the result of someone falling asleep on the quality control desk, and that turns out, when you understand what the head is actually doing, to be one of the most sophisticated sensory weapons ever evolved. Let me lay out the design issues, because the comedy lives in just how thoroughly the head appears to break every shark design principle. Problem 1. Drag. The shark blueprint is built around streamlining. Every line of a normal shark points toward minimal water resistance, because efficient movement matters enormously to a predator that has to cover distance and accelerate quickly. The hammerhead's wide, flat head is, on paper, a drag disaster. It is the equivalent of bolting a wide, flat plate to the front of a sports car. The whole rest of the body is shaped beautifully for speed, and the head is shaped like a coffee table. By every aerodynamic principle, this should not work. Problem 2. The eyes. On the standard shark, the eyes are set in the head where you would expect them. On the hammerhead, the eyes are placed at the far ends of the crossbeam, sometimes more than a meter apart in the largest species, which raises the obvious question: why? The eyes of a normal shark are perfectly positioned for binocular vision and predator targeting. The hammerhead's eyes are placed so far apart that they look like an animal that ordered the wrong size head and never sent it back. The eyes are not where eyes are supposed to be. Problem 3. The aesthetic. I have to mention this because it is part of the comedy. A regular shark, in profile, looks like a sleek, apex predator. A hammerhead, in profile, looks like someone glued a small fence to its face. There is no graceful way to describe the silhouette. From above, it looks like a torpedo with a ruler taped to the front of it. The head is the most visually unusual feature on any shark in the ocean, and it does not look impressive in the conventional sense. It looks frankly like a mistake. So the spec sheet reads, "A perfectly good shark, ruined by an absurd wide flat head that creates unnecessary drag, places the eyes in completely the wrong location and makes the whole silhouette look like a manufacturing error. By every conventional measure of how a shark should look, this design appears to have been a catastrophic decision." And now, of course, the joke turns into the genuine fact. Because the hammerhead is not a manufacturing error. The hammerhead is one of the most sensory sophisticated sharks in the ocean, and the head is the entire reason why. Here is the trick. The head is not a face. The head is an array. A wide, flat, sensitive sensor array packed with detection equipment spread out across the water like a metal detector held wide in front of the animal as it swims. Sharks have a remarkable sense called electroreception. They can detect tiny electrical fields generated by the muscle activity of other animals, including prey hiding under the sand. These detectors are called the ampullae of Lorenzini, and they are arranged in pores across the shark's head. On a normal shark, these pores are concentrated in a relatively narrow area, giving the shark a localized electrical sense of the water in front of it. On the hammerhead, those same detectors are spread across the enormous wide head, covering a much larger surface area than any normal shark could. As the hammerhead swims, it sweeps that wide head from side to side, scanning the sea floor with a sensor array that is far broader and far more detailed than the standard shark equipment. It can detect the faint electrical signature of a stingray buried under the sand from positions and distances that other sharks would simply miss. The hammerhead is essentially a living mine detector, sweeping the bottom of the ocean with a search system that no other shark species can match. And the eye placement, the eyes pushed to the far ends of the crossbeam, gives the hammerhead a remarkably wide field of vision. Some research suggests hammerheads have excellent vertical and lateral coverage, including, in some cases, near 360-degree vision in some planes. The eyes that looked like they were in the wrong place turn out to be in exactly the right place for a predator that wants to see almost everything around it at once. And the wide head also gives the hammerhead remarkable maneuverability. Studies have shown the wide head acts almost like a hydrofoil, helping the shark pivot sharply, especially in the chase. The thing that looked like it should create drag turns out to be a maneuvering surface, helping the hammerhead turn faster than a normal shark when locked onto prey. So the head is not a mistake. The head is a multifunctional sensor and steering system, dramatically expanding electroreception, vision, and maneuverability all at once. The absurd-looking design is, on closer inspection, one of the most clever pieces of multi-purpose engineering in the predator world. The hammerhead did not get a bad head. The hammerhead got a head that does 3 jobs at once, and its prey is the one that has to deal with the consequences. 7 chapters in, if you are enjoying the absurd designs and the way they turn out to be brilliant, do me a favor and hit the like button. It really helps the algorithm understand this is worth showing to more people. And it costs you exactly 1 second. Then let's keep going, because we are not even halfway through the unhinged designs yet. That is the 7th bad design. The head that went through quality control asleep. A shark with the most visually ridiculous skull in the entire predator world that turned its absurd wide head into one of the most sophisticated sensory arrays in the sea, sweeping the seafloor with an electrical search system no other shark can match, while also seeing in almost every direction at once and steering better in the chase. Sometimes the head that looks like a mistake is actually the head that does 3 jobs. Let us talk about walking. Walking is, on the whole, a solved problem. The basic locomotion blueprint for animals on legs is fairly settled. You face the direction you want to go. You move your legs in that direction. You arrive. The system has been refined across countless species, and almost every animal that walks does it forward, because forward is, by every reasonable principle, the direction walking is supposed to go. You want to see where you are going. You want your sensory organs pointed at the obstacles ahead. You want your body lined up with the path of travel. Forward walking is so deeply baked into how vertebrate locomotion works that we do not even question it. Forward is the default. Forward is what walking means. And then there is one animal, abundant across the entire ocean, that looked at this universally accepted concept and decided, sideways. I want you to picture the moment this design got proposed. The other crustacean designers were probably presenting their forward-walking ideas. The lobster, the shrimp, all of them lined up to demonstrate their respective forward locomotion systems. And one designer stood up, walked to the front of the room, and demonstrated their concept by shuffling laterally across the floor like they had forgotten which way the room was. And then they said, with apparent confidence, "This is the new walking. It is the same as the old walking, but to the side. Trust me, this is the crab." And the crab is, in my honest opinion, one of the funniest design choices in the entire animal kingdom, because almost everything about the crab's basic operation looks, on first glance, like an animal that read the manual for being a normal walking creature and got every chapter slightly wrong. Let me walk you through the design problems, and I will try to keep a straight face. Problem 1. The walking. The crab does not walk forward in almost any meaningful sense. The crab walks sideways. Its legs are arranged in a way that makes lateral movement its primary mode of locomotion, and forward walking is, by comparison, awkward and slow. Watch a crab move and you will see it scuttling laterally across rocks and sand, with that distinctive, almost crab-shaped sideways gait that has become so iconic we forget how genuinely strange it is. The crab has, in effect, chosen as its main movement system the one direction that almost every other walking animal on Earth treats as the awkward secondary direction. The crab has volunteered to specialize in moving sideways, on purpose, forever. Problem 2. The body shape. The crab is broad and flat. It is shaped like a small armored discus. There is no streamlined profile, no aerodynamic taper, no graceful contour pointing in the direction of travel. The crab is a chunk. A blocky, side-oriented, low-to-the-ground chunk with a hard shell on top and legs sticking out the sides. By every conventional measure of how to design an animal to move efficiently, the crab is not designed to move efficiently. It is designed to be a sideways shuffling tank. Problem 3. The proportions. The crab's claws, the front 2 legs that have been modified into pincers, are often much larger than the other legs, sometimes absurdly larger. In some species, one claw is huge while the other is small, giving the animal a permanent lopsided look, like a tiny boxer who only ever trained one arm. The whole proportional system of the crab looks unbalanced. It looks like an animal that got assembled in a hurry and never had its dimensions properly checked. Problem 4. The attitude. I have to mention the attitude because it is part of the comedy. The crab, despite being small, awkwardly shaped, sideways walking and proportionally questionable, carries itself with absolute confidence. The crab will, with no provocation, raise its claws at a creature 10 times its size and dare it to do something about it. The crab does not have the self-awareness that by every measure of how this confrontation should go, the crab should lose. The crab simply does not consider losing as an option. It is the smallest, most overconfident street brawler in the ocean, and it has the entire chip-on-shoulder personality of a much larger animal compressed into a small, armored body that walks sideways. So look at the spec sheet. A small, sideways-walking, flat, armored, lopsided creature with disproportionate claws and an attitude problem. By the standards of the standard walking animal, this design appears to be a chaotic combination of choices that should not have made it past the prototype meeting. The crab looks like an animal that genuinely should not work, that should be too awkward, too slow, too poorly proportioned, and too small to survive in any serious capacity. And now, of course, the joke turns into the genuine fact, because the crab is one of the most spectacularly successful animals on the entire planet. Crabs are everywhere. Reefs, tidal pools, mangroves, deep sea, mud, sand, rocky shores. The crab is in nearly every aquatic environment on Earth, and a few terrestrial ones, and it is not just surviving in those places, it is dominating them. The crab is one of the great survival stories of the animal world, and every single feature of its absurd-looking design is, on closer inspection, a perfect adaptation for what the crab actually does. The sideways walking. Not awkward. Brilliant. The crab specializes in tight spaces, in cracks between rocks, in narrow crevices, in shelters where there is no room to turn around. A forward-walking animal in those spaces is stuck. A sideways-walking animal slips through narrow gaps with the long axis of its body, getting into spaces forward walkers cannot follow. The crab's gait is not a quirky design choice. It is the optimal locomotion for an animal that lives in cracks. Sideways is the right direction when the world is narrow. The flat, broad body. Not chunky. Stable. Hard to flip. Low to the ground. Perfect for clinging to rocks in surf, for fitting into tight spaces, for holding position against currents that would carry a tall body away. The crab's shape is functional in environments where being narrow and tall would be a liability. The disproportionate claws. Not lopsided. Specialized. The big claw is for fighting and crushing, the smaller one for fine manipulation. The crab has tools mounted at the front of its body, and the proportions of those tools are tuned for their specific jobs. The attitude. Honestly, mostly justified. With armor, claws, sideways speed, and an ability to disappear into a crevice in a heartbeat, the crab can back up the confidence. It is not as outmatched in confrontations as its size suggests. So the crab is not a bad design at all. It is a brilliant design that committed entirely to a specific niche, the niche of small, armored, sideways walking opportunists, and built every feature of itself around that commitment. The crab has thrived for hundreds of millions of years in roughly this form, scuttling sideways through every ocean on the planet, fighting opponents many times its size, surviving where elegant fish cannot, doing the unglamorous and absolutely successful work of being a stubborn little armored problem with legs. That is the 8th bad design. The thing that walks sideways on purpose. A small, flat, lopsided armored creature that chose lateral movement as its primary locomotion system carries an attitude wildly out of proportion to its size and has, against every reasonable expectation, become one of the most successful animal designs on the planet. The crab does not look right. The crab is, in fact, exactly right. The world just needed an animal that goes sideways. Imagine you're a predator on the reef and you have just spotted what looks like a meal. It is a soft animal, tube-shaped, squishy, no shell, no spines, no bony plates. It is by every visible indicator the kind of snack that other animals fight over. You move toward it. As you approach, the snack changes color, slightly. You blink. It does not look quite like it did a moment ago. The pattern on its skin has shifted. Now it looks more like the rocks around it. Now it has bumps on its skin that match the texture of the coral behind it. Now it has waves of dark color rolling across its body in a way that makes your eyes want to follow them, and you find yourself, for reasons you cannot quite identify, slightly disoriented. You close in. The animal is doing something now. A pattern is pulsing down its body in slow, hypnotic stripes, mesmerizing in a way that, again, you cannot quite locate the cause of. You are not even sure where the animal ends and the background begins. You blink again. The pattern shifts. The shape shifts. Was this thing here a moment ago? Was it bigger? Did it look like this? You are no longer sure what you came over here to eat. By the time you have figured out what is happening, the animal has changed color one more time, vanished against a different patch of rock, and you are alone, hungry, and mildly confused. You have just been deceived by a cuttlefish. And the cuttlefish is, by any reasonable measure, one of the most fascinating bad design success stories in the entire ocean. Because on paper, the cuttlefish is an absurdly soft target. And in practice, the cuttlefish is one of the most successful con artists nature has ever produced. Let me walk through the design problems first, because they are real ones. Problem 1. The body. The cuttlefish is soft, genuinely soft. It is related to the octopus and the squid and shares with them the absence of any meaningful skeleton. There is a small, lightweight internal structure called the cuttlebone that helps with buoyancy, but it is not armor. It does not protect the cuttlefish from anything. The cuttlefish's body is mechanically a fragile little tube of flesh. You could compress it with one hand. You could bite through it without effort. The cuttlefish has none of the armor, plates, spines, shells, or hard parts that protect almost every other small animal in its size range. Problem 2. The speed. The cuttlefish can move quickly when it has to, using jet propulsion and a fin that runs around its body, but it is not, in raw terms, especially fast compared to many of its predators. It cannot outrun a determined fish chasing it. It cannot escape by speed alone. Its propulsion gets it out of trouble in short bursts, but as a primary defensive strategy, speed is not enough. Problem 3. The shape and appearance by default are not particularly intimidating. The cuttlefish does not have a fearsome silhouette. It does not have a face that warns predators off. It does not have an obviously threatening posture. In its baseline state, the cuttlefish looks, frankly, like a soft, edible little tube with tentacles, which is exactly what most predators would interpret it as. It looks like an easy meal that has not yet figured out it should be hiding. Problem 4. The size. The cuttlefish is generally not very big. Some species reach impressive dimensions, but most are modest in size, well within the range of what most reef predators could comfortably take down if they could just catch it. So the design summary is bleak. A soft, slow, edible-looking, modestly sized tube with no armor, no spines, no shell, and no obvious defensive equipment. By every conventional measure of how to survive in a sea full of predators, the cuttlefish has equipped itself with absolutely nothing. The design appears to be, on its face, completely defenseless. The cuttlefish is what happens when you build an animal and then forget to add any of the standard survival features. And here, of course, is where the joke turns, because the cuttlefish solved this problem in the most magnificent way imaginable. The cuttlefish did not add armor. The cuttlefish did not add speed. The cuttlefish did not add weapons. The cuttlefish added instead the ability to be visually anyone it wants, at any moment, in real time, with such precision and speed that it can essentially decide, on the fly, what other animals think they are seeing. This is the cuttlefish's skin. And the cuttlefish's skin is one of the most extraordinary biological systems on the planet. Beneath the surface of the skin are millions of tiny pigment cells called chromatophores, each one a little bag of color that can be expanded or contracted by muscles, changing the cuttlefish's color in milliseconds. Layered with the chromatophores are reflective cells called iridophores and leucophores that bounce and scatter light, allowing for shimmers, iridescence, and adjustment of brightness. And the cuttlefish can change not just color, but the apparent texture of its skin, raising small muscular bumps called papillae to create three-dimensional surface patterns that mimic coral, rock, or seaweed. In practice, this means the cuttlefish can, in a fraction of a second, change its color, pattern, and texture to match virtually any background it encounters. It can become a piece of coral, a patch of sand, a bit of seaweed, a different fish, a rock. The cuttlefish is essentially a real-time biological display capable of impersonating its surroundings with such precision that experienced divers have stared directly at a cuttlefish for long minutes without realizing it was there. The soft, edible-looking tube vanishes, replaced by what appears to be just another piece of the reef, holding still and looking like nothing at all. And it gets stranger. The cuttlefish does not only use this system for camouflage, it uses it for hunting. Many cuttlefish hunt by approaching prey while running hypnotic patterns of moving light across their bodies. Dark bands pulse down the cuttlefish's flanks in waves, and the prey, watching this rolling display, appears to become disoriented, slow to react, fixated on the moving pattern, while the cuttlefish drifts closer and closer. By the time the prey snaps out of it, the cuttlefish has fired its long feeding tentacles forward, and the encounter is over. The soft, defenseless animal has used its skin not just to hide, but to actively mesmerize its meals. And the cuttlefish also uses its skin to communicate with other cuttlefish, with potential mates. There are documented cases of male cuttlefish displaying courtship colors on one side of their body, facing a female, while simultaneously displaying neutral, non-threatening colors on the other side of their body, facing a rival male, hiding the courtship from the competitor. The cuttlefish can essentially run two completely different visual conversations at once, with different audiences, using opposite sides of its own body. The fraud has multiple identities, running in parallel. So the cuttlefish is not a bad design. The cuttlefish is the most lateral solution to the survival problem in the entire ocean. It looked at the standard problem of being a soft, edible animal in a dangerous world, and instead of investing in armor or speed, it invested in deception at a level no other animal can match. The cuttlefish does not have a fixed visual identity. The cuttlefish is, in essence, a fraud with no fixed address, a soft little con artist running a real-time visual deception campaign against the entire ocean. That is the ninth bad design. The fraud with no fixed address. A soft, fragile, slow, unarmored animal that solved the survival problem by becoming the most sophisticated visual deceiver on the planet, capable of changing its appearance in milliseconds to disappear, hypnotize, or communicate, and that has thrived for an enormous span of evolutionary time by simply never being the same visual target twice. Some animals survive by being hard to kill. The cuttlefish survives by being hard to find, and even harder to be sure you actually saw. Look at most mammals walking on land. The dog, the cat, the horse, the deer. They are, without exception, well designed for walking. They have 4 legs, properly proportioned, that move through coordinated gaits. They can walk, run, change direction, jump, and generally exist on the surface of the earth with reasonable competence. The land mammal blueprint is, by any standard, a successful one. It has been refined across countless species, and most mammals you can think of can move across land without making it look like a struggle. And then there is one branch of mammals that, somewhere in its evolutionary history, looked at the standard land mammal design and decided to make some changes. Specifically, they decided to fuse their legs into their bodies, eliminate the hips, get rid of any reasonable ability to support their own weight on land, replace their hind limbs with paddle-like flippers that drag uselessly behind them, and become, essentially, large lumpy tubes of fat that cannot get themselves across a beach without flopping forward in a series of awkward, belly-driven lurches. I want you to picture this design pitch in front of an evaluation committee. The presenter walks in. He says, "Here is my new mammal concept. I want to take a perfectly good four-legged animal and remove most of its land mobility. I want to merge the back legs into the body and turn them into useless paddle things. I want to add an enormous amount of fat. I want it to be unable to walk properly. When it needs to move on land, it will essentially throw itself forward, belly first, in a kind of inchworm motion, looking like an exhausted sausage trying to escape a meeting it does not want to be in." There would be questions. The committee would look at each other. Someone would say gently, "This animal cannot walk. Is that on purpose?" The presenter would say yes. They would ask, "Then how does it get around?" The presenter would smile and say, "Just put it in the water. Trust me." And somehow, against every reasonable evaluation, this design got built. The result was the seal. And the seal is one of the most beautifully comedic and beautifully brilliant designs in the entire bad design catalogue, because the land version of this animal looks like a complete failure, and the water version of this animal turns out to be one of the most effective predators in the cold sea. Let me give the land form its due first, because the comedy is the whole point of the setup. The seal on land is, I will say this gently, not its best self. It cannot walk in any conventional sense. Its hind flippers are useless on land, dragging behind it like wet rubber gloves. Its front flippers are short and not really built for weight-bearing locomotion. So when a seal needs to move on land, it does this absurd inching, lurching, belly-flopping motion, throwing the front of its body forward, dragging the rest along behind it, in the kind of progress that genuinely looks like the animal is fighting gravity and losing. A seal moving across a beach is a creature that has accepted its terrestrial defeat and is just doing its best. And then there is the appearance. The seal on land looks, frankly, like a piece of furniture. Round, smooth, lumpy, often piled up with other seals on rocks or beaches, snoring, yawning, sneezing at each other, occasionally rolling over in a kind of beach dignity that does not quite achieve dignity. Seals on land have given me genuine joy on more than one occasion just because of how completely committed they are to being absurd. They do not seem embarrassed. They do not seem to know they look ridiculous. They just lie there, in piles, being themselves. So if you saw a seal on a beach and had to evaluate it as a design, you might conclude that this animal had given up. You might conclude that the design committee made a serious error somewhere, and that this poor lumpy creature is what was left over after they were done. You would be looking at, by every visible measure, a mammal that does not work properly. And then the seal gets in the water. This is where the joke turns into one of the most dramatic transformations in the entire animal kingdom. The instant a seal enters the water, the lumpy, useless sleeping bag becomes an entirely different animal. The body that looked formless on land turns out to be perfectly streamlined hydrodynamically. The hind flippers that dragged so uselessly across the sand become the primary engine, sweeping side to side in powerful, controlled strokes that propel the seal through the water at high speed. The front flippers become steering. The body curves and twists with a flexibility that completely contradicts the inchworm flop of the land version. The clumsy beach-bound animal vanishes, and in its place is a fast, agile, supremely capable underwater hunter. And here is the part that really lands. The seal in the water is not just competent. The seal in the water is a serious predator. Different seal species have different capabilities, but as a group, seals are deep divers, capable of holding their breath for extended periods, slowing their heart rate dramatically to conserve oxygen, and pursuing fish, squid, and other prey through cold, dark, often murky water with extraordinary skill. They are fast. They are maneuverable. They are persistent. The animal that could not get itself across a beach with any dignity is, in the water, hunting prey that almost nothing else in the cold ocean could catch. And the whiskers. I cannot end this chapter without mentioning the whiskers. Those big, bristly moustache things on the seal's face, which look mostly decorative, are in fact one of the most sophisticated mechanical sensors in the entire animal kingdom. They are extraordinarily sensitive to water movement and disturbance. A seal hunting in dark or murky water can detect the trail of water disturbance left by a fish that swam through it. Not the fish, the wake, the lingering hydrodynamic signature of where the fish has been. And the seal can follow that wake through dark water, locating prey by the residue of its movement. The animal that looked like a piece of furniture is, in the water, equipped with sensor technology that engineers are still trying to copy. So the seal is the bad design chapter, where the design contradiction is the most extreme. On land, it is one of the most cartoonishly inept animals you will ever see. In water, it is a streamlined, deep-diving, whisker-sensing, fast-swimming hunter. The same body, in two different environments, becomes two completely different animals. The land form looks like the design committee made a terrible mistake. The water form makes you realize they knew exactly what they were doing the whole time. 10 chapters in, if you are enjoying this video, the absurd designs and the way they secretly work, then subscribing is the single best thing you can do right now to support the channel. I keep these asks short because I want the chapters to flow, but it really does help, and if you have made it 10 chapters into a video about bad design fish, we are clearly the right kind of people for each other. Then let's keep going, because the designs from here only get stranger. That is the 10th bad design. The wet sleeping bag that hunts. A mammal that gave up most of its land mobility, accepted being a flopping inchworm on shore, and traded all of it for a body so superbly engineered for water that it has become one of the most effective cold sea predators on the planet. The land version is the joke. The water version is the entire point. I want you to look back across the chapters so far. We have seen in this video evolution at what appears to be its most committed. The seahorse with its vertical body, its useless-looking spiral tail, its absurd horse face, its tube mouth, its male pregnancy. The pufferfish, with its inflation system and its lethal toxins. The frogfish, with its sponge disguise and its walking fins. The cuttlefish, with its entire skin rebuilt as a real-time visual deception system. The hammerhead shark, with a head that took years of meetings to design. The crab, with the most committed lateral walking system in the animal kingdom. Each of these animals is, in its own way, a baroque feat of engineering. Evolution put in the time. Evolution stayed late at the office. Evolution clearly enjoyed itself. And then, somewhere in the same evolutionary department, there was apparently a project that came in at the end of the quarter, when nobody had any more energy, and the brief said, "Design a fast predator." And somebody just said, "Fine." You know what they said. "We will take a long silver tube. We will put teeth on the front. We will make it fast." That is it. That is the whole design. No camouflage, no tricks, no skin technology, no weird body plan, no moustache, no inflation, no second jaws. Just a silver tube with teeth that goes fast. Ship it. I am going home. This is the Barracuda. And the Barracuda is the chapter where the bad design framework gets to make a different joke than usual, because the Barracuda is not visually absurd, not awkwardly proportioned, not weirdly behaved. The Barracuda is, instead, the most reductive predator design in the entire ocean. It looks, frankly, like nature could not be bothered. Let me walk you through the spec sheet, because the comedy here is in just how stripped down the design actually is. Problem 1. The shape. The Barracuda is a long, narrow, silver tube. That is genuinely most of what there is to say about its profile. It does not have an elaborate body plan. It does not have decorative fins or showy coloration. It does not have any of the structural complexity you see in animals that have specialized for unusual environments. The Barracuda is, in profile, almost the platonic ideal of a generic fish shape, stretched out and polished into a knife. There is nothing creative here. The design is a fish made entirely of fish. Problem 2. The teeth. The Barracuda has a mouth, and the mouth has teeth, and the teeth are sharp. That is the entire weapon system. There is no venom. There is no electric shock. There is no chemical lure. There is no clever ambush mechanism. There are no specialized appendages. There is no skin trick. There is a mouth with teeth, and the teeth do the work. The Barracuda's entire offensive arsenal could be described in a single line. It bites things, and the bite is sharp enough to do damage. Problem 3. The behavior. The Barracuda's hunting strategy is roughly as elaborate as its body plan. It cruises slowly through the open water near reef edges, looking around. When it sees prey, it accelerates very fast. It bites the prey. The end. There is no patience phase. There is no elaborate setup. There is no luring or hypnotizing or tricking. The Barracuda's entire approach to hunting is see fish, become fast, end fish. It is the simplest predatory behavior I can describe in this video, without exaggeration. Problem 4. The coloration. The Barracuda is silver. Just silver. Maybe with some darker bars depending on the species. But fundamentally, the Barracuda is a piece of polished metal that swims. There is no pattern. There is no warning coloration. There is no camouflage display. There is no skin technology of any kind. The Barracuda looks like what a child might draw if asked to draw a generic fish and then sketched in some teeth at the end. So look at the full design. A long silver tube with teeth that swims at modest speeds until it suddenly does not, and that hunts by accelerating quickly and biting things. By every standard we have used to evaluate animals in this video, the Barracuda has the least creative design we have seen. There is no quirk to admire, no weird workaround to laugh at, no specialized organ that takes a paragraph to explain. The Barracuda is, on the spec sheet, evolution's day off. The bare minimum predator. The design that took the brief literally and added nothing. And here is the punchline of this chapter, because the punchline is different from the others. The Barracuda is not a bad design at all. The Barracuda is the proof that sometimes you do not need to be creative. The Barracuda is what happens when nature realizes that the basic predator concept, executed with absolute commitment and no distractions, is genuinely all you need. The Barracuda did not skip the work. The Barracuda just figured out very early that the work could be one thing, done extremely well, and nothing else. The shape, the long silver tube, is hydrodynamically excellent. It is built for speed. The narrow profile cuts through the water with minimal drag. The streamlined body means the Barracuda can accelerate from a near standstill to a high-speed strike in a fraction of a second, faster than almost any prey can react. The teeth, sharp and varied, are tools for one job, which is gripping and slicing flesh in a single strike. They do not need to be sophisticated. They need to be sharp, and they are. The bite is decisive, often killing or crippling prey before it can struggle. The behavior, see fish and accelerate, is not lazy. It is what an animal does when its primary advantage is overwhelming speed in the strike. The Barracuda does not need to hunt cleverly because the prey does not get a chance to escape. By the time most prey notices the strike is already over. The simplicity of the hunt is a luxury made possible by the brutal effectiveness of the body. And the silver coloration, which looks lazy, is actually a real strategy. The reflective silver body breaks up the Barracuda's outline in open water, making it harder for prey to see clearly from a distance, especially in the dim conditions of dawn and dusk near reef edges. The polished metal look is a kind of visual disruption camouflage, hiding the Barracuda in the play of light at the surface zones where it hunts. So the Barracuda is not nature being lazy. The Barracuda is nature being uncompromising. It looked at the predator problem and said, "We do not need to add anything to the basic design. We just need to commit to it harder than anyone else." And then it made the most reductive predator possible, polished it into a silver blade, and dropped it into the open lanes of every warm ocean on Earth, where it has been thriving for an enormous span of evolutionary time. That is the 11th bad design. The day evolution did not feel like trying. A long silver tube with teeth that hunts by accelerating fast and biting things, and that proves against every chapter that came before it that sometimes the bad design is not bad at all. It is just the boring one done so well that nothing more needed to be added. The Barracuda is the chapter where simple wins. Most animals look like they were designed in a survival lab. Their bodies are practical, functional, built for the brutal calculations of staying alive. Even the absurd designs we have looked at in this video, the seahorse, the frogfish, the pufferfish, all of them have a kind of working-class quality to them. They are weird, but you can see with a little squinting that they are working things out. The seahorse is solving the problem of ambush feeding. The frogfish is solving the problem of disguise. Every animal so far has at least looked like it was trying. And then there is one animal, drifting through the temperate seas off southern Australia, that looks like it did not come from the survival lab at all. It looks like it came from a theatrical costume department. Like somebody on the design committee got bored, wandered down the hall to where the props team was working, picked up a pile of fake seaweed, glued it onto a fish, and then walked back into the meeting and presented it like it was a serious proposal. I want you to picture the moment this got pitched. The other fish in the catalogue are sleek, streamlined, functional. The designer walks in with this thing covered in long, flowing, leaf-shaped frills, hanging from every angle of its body, drifting and swaying. Someone at the table asks, "What are those for?" The designer says, "They are leaves." The committee asks, "Why does the fish have leaves on it?" The designer shrugs and says, "Because it looked good." This is the leafy sea dragon. And the leafy sea dragon is, in my honest opinion, the most aesthetically committed animal in the entire bad design catalogue, because it looks, by every measure, like a creature that prioritized appearance over function in the most extreme possible way, and that somehow, against every reasonable expectation, made appearance the function. Let me describe it, because the description itself is half the joke. The leafy sea dragon is a small, slender fish, related to the seahorse, that lives in the kelp-rich waters of the southern Australian coast. And its body, from head to tail, is covered in long, flowing, leaf-shaped appendages. They are green, golden, and translucent. They drift in the water as the dragon moves, swaying back and forth, fluttering with every gentle current. There are dozens of them, some long, some short, some hanging from its back, some from its sides, some from its tail. The fish, in profile, looks less like an animal and more like a piece of seaweed that has decided to start swimming. It is genuinely breathtakingly beautiful. I am not joking when I say that the leafy sea dragon is one of the most aesthetically stunning animals on the planet. People travel to southern Australia specifically to see one in person, and the photographs do not really do it justice. In motion, in clear water, surrounded by the kelp and seaweed it lives among, the leafy sea dragon looks like something a painter dreamed up. It looks like a fantasy creature. It looks, frankly, like it should not be real. And by every survival principle we have used in this video so far, the leafy sea dragon should not work as a design. Let me walk you through the problems. Problem 1. The appendages. All those gorgeous leaf-shaped frills. They are not muscles. They are not fins. They are not used for swimming. They do not contribute to thrust, balance, or propulsion in any meaningful way. They are, by any practical measure, decoration. The fish is carrying around, on its body, a substantial mass of structural material that does not help it move, hunt, or fight. From an energy efficiency standpoint, this is a disaster. The leafy sea dragon is paying the metabolic cost of growing and maintaining all this elaborate decoration and getting, in pure swimming terms, nothing back for the investment. Problem 2. The movement. The leafy sea dragon does not swim well. At all. It is one of the slowest, most graceful, almost imperceptibly drifting fish in the entire sea. It does not chase. It does not flee with any urgency. It just drifts, slowly, through the kelp, with its leafy appendages swaying around it. If a predator decided to make a meal of a leafy sea dragon, the dragon would have essentially no athletic recourse. It cannot escape. It cannot fight. It can only drift. Problem 3. The body. The leafy sea dragon is small, slender, and fragile looking. There is no armor, no spines, no teeth, no venom, no claws. none of the standard defensive equipment that other small, fragile animals carry. The dragon is, in terms of conventional defenses, essentially defenseless. Soft, slow, carrying a load of decorative leaves that should make it more visible, not less. By every conventional measure, this animal looks like it should not have survived past the first season. So the spec sheet is, on paper, a comedy. A defenseless, slow, fragile fish that grew elaborate leaf-shaped decorations all over its body for, apparently, no good reason, and that drifts gently through the seaweed at a pace that would lose a race against an aging snail. The leafy sea dragon looks like an animal that was designed by the props department and somehow snuck into the survival catalogue. By every standard of practical biology, this should not have worked. And here, of course, is where the joke turns and the chapter pays off, because the leafy sea dragon's apparent impracticality is, in fact, the most beautiful expression of the camouflage principle in the entire ocean. The dragon lives in kelp forests, specifically in waters where the seafloor and the water column are dense with leafy, drifting, swaying seaweed. And the dragon's elaborate leaf-shaped appendages match the surrounding kelp with such perfection that the animal becomes, when motionless and drifting, essentially invisible to predators. The leaves on its body match the leaves of the kelp. The fluttering of its appendages in the current matches the fluttering of the seaweed in the same current. The leafy sea dragon does not hide behind the seaweed. It looks exactly like seaweed. From the perspective of a predator scanning the kelp forest, there is no fish there at all. There is only more seaweed, drifting gently, the way seaweed drifts. And the slow movement is part of the trick, not a flaw. A fast-moving fish in the kelp would be obvious. The flick of a tail, the dart of a body, the recognizable rhythm of swimming would all give the dragon away. By moving so slowly that it does not really look like it is moving, by drifting at the same gentle pace as the surrounding seaweed, the leafy sea dragon erases the most obvious giveaway that it is alive. The slowness is the camouflage in motion. It is not weakness. It is the active maintenance of the disguise. So the impractical decorations are not impractical. They are one of the most extreme commitments to disguise in the entire fish world. The leafy sea dragon traded every athletic capability for the ability to look like part of the scenery. It did not invest in speed or armor or weapons. It invested in becoming visual clutter, in becoming essentially drifting kelp that happens to be a fish. And in the kelp forest where it lives, where predators scan the seaweed for movement and silhouette, the dragon's whole strategy is to present neither, ever. The decoration is the survival system. The impracticality is the genius. I find the leafy sea dragon genuinely moving as a design because it represents something a little different from the other animals in this video. Most of the bad designs we have looked at solved their problems with cleverness or trickery or some kind of biological workaround. The leafy sea dragon solved its problem with beauty. It became so visually committed to its disguise that the disguise became the animal. The function and the form are no longer separable. It is camouflage that achieved the form of art. That is the 12th bad design. The fish that joined a costume department. A delicate, slow, decorative-looking creature that grew elaborate leaf-shaped frills across its entire body for what appears to be no practical reason, and that turned out to be, against every conventional metric of survival, one of the most beautifully effective camouflage strategies in the entire ocean. Sometimes the impractical thing is the practical thing, just dressed up better than anyone expected. Because so far in this video, the gag has been the same. I describe an animal that looks, on paper, like a design disaster. The seahorse, the frogfish, the cuttlefish, the crab. Each one looks broken or absurd, and the punchline of each chapter is that, somehow, the apparent flaws turn out to be brilliant solutions to specific problems. This chapter is going to do the opposite. This chapter is going to start with an animal that looks, on paper, like the perfect fish. The dream design. The gold standard. The result of evolution at its most polished and committed. Everything about this animal is going to look like it was built by an engineering team that did not skip a single meeting, working from a perfected blueprint with no wasted moves. And then, near the end, the joke is going to turn, because being this perfectly designed for one thing turns out to have a catch nobody mentions on the spec sheet. The catch is the trap. This is the tuna. And the tuna is what happens when evolution gets a fish exactly right, and the fish is the one that pays the price. Let me list the design features first, and notice as we go how each one is, on its own, genuinely impressive. Feature 1. The shape. The tuna's body is a near-perfect torpedo. Streamlined, smooth, tapered at both ends, designed to slip through water with absolutely minimal resistance. There is no wasted line, no extra protrusion, no decorative fin sticking out where it does not need to. The body is, by every standard of fluid dynamics, an optimized form. Engineers studying hydrodynamic efficiency literally use the tuna as a reference. The fish that builds itself like this is not making a mistake. It is the right answer to the question of how to move efficiently through water. Feature 2. The muscle. The tuna is mostly muscle. Powerful, dense, oxygen-rich muscle, organized around a strong tail and a body designed to convert chemical energy into propulsion with extraordinary efficiency. The tuna can swim at high speeds, sustained for long periods. It can sprint to impressive bursts when it needs to. The musculature is the engine, and the engine is enormous and well built. By any measure of fish performance, the tuna is among the most athletic vertebrates in the ocean. Feature 3. The tail. The tail of a tuna is genuinely remarkable. It is crescent-shaped, narrow and tall, attached to the body by a thin, almost knife-like peduncle. This is the elegant solution to a very specific problem. The crescent tail produces high thrust with low drag, beating in a fast, controlled motion that gives the tuna its tremendous swimming power. It is the most refined swimming engine in the fish world. Other fish have flatter, broader tails, fine for their purposes. The tuna has the racing tail, the one built for speed. Feature 4. The temperature regulation. This is where the tuna starts to look almost unfair. Most fish are cold-blooded, taking on the temperature of the water around them. The tuna is special. The tuna has an internal heat exchange system that keeps the core of its body, especially its swimming muscles, warmer than the surrounding water. A warm muscle is a stronger muscle, so the tuna runs its engine hot, like a race car, gaining performance other fish cannot match. The tuna is, in effect, partially warm-blooded, an engineering feature that gives it a real, measurable advantage in cold or cool waters where other fish would slow down. Feature 5. The eyes. The tuna has large, well-developed eyes built for spotting prey in open water. The senses are sharp. The targeting is precise. The whole sensory and predatory apparatus is at the top of what fish design can achieve. By every measure, the tuna is the dream fish, the optimized fish, the perfect predator design. If you were submitting this to the evolution committee, you would walk in with a confident smile, present each feature, and watch the committee nod approvingly at every slide. There is no mustache, no inflation, no skin trick, no absurd head. This is the fish that took the standard fish design and pushed every parameter to its theoretical maximum. So where is the catch? Where is the bad design joke? Here it is. The tuna cannot stop. This is the cost. The catch. The trap built into the perfect design. The tuna's elite swimming performance, its warm muscles, its high metabolism, its oxygen-demanding athleticism, comes with a price that other fish do not pay. The tuna has to keep moving constantly for its entire life. Most fish can stop swimming. They can rest. They can pump water over their gills using their mouths, drawing oxygen out of the water while staying still. The tuna mostly cannot do this. The tuna depends on what is called ram ventilation, where forward motion forces water through its open mouth and over its gills, providing oxygen. If the tuna stops moving, it cannot breathe. If it cannot breathe, it suffocates. So the tuna swims, all the time, for its entire life. From the moment a young tuna is capable of swimming on its own until the day it dies, it cannot stop. Not for sleep, not for rest, not for a single hour of stillness. The most athletic body in the ocean is also the body that has to keep its engine running 24 hours a day for years just to stay alive. The tuna's fitness is not freedom. It is a treadmill. A biological treadmill it boarded the moment it was born and that it cannot get off until it dies. And the cost of running that treadmill is enormous. The tuna's appetite is massive. The constant swimming burns calories at a relentless rate, and the tuna has to eat continuously to sustain it. It must hunt almost constantly, traveling huge distances across the open sea, chasing schools of smaller fish, eating, swimming, hunting, swimming, eating, never resting. The tuna's whole life is movement and food, in an endless loop with no off switch. This is the chapter's twist. The tuna's design is not bad. The tuna's design is genuinely brilliant by every conventional measure. The trap is that it is so good at one thing that it has eliminated every other option. The tuna cannot choose to be a slow ambush hunter like the frogfish. It cannot choose to be a still drifter like the box jellyfish. It cannot choose to hide and rest in a crevice like the moray. It is locked into the high-performance life. Its body demands constant motion. Its biology has committed, fully and irreversibly, to the athletic option. And there is a deeper lesson here, which is the real value of putting the tuna in a bad design video. The other animals in this video have all looked like flawed designs that turned out to be cleverly hidden specializations. The tuna is the inverse. It is the elite design that hides a specialization trap. Being the most perfect version of one thing means you cannot also be the other things. The tuna is the proof that there is no such thing as a perfect design in nature. Only designs that are extremely good at one specific thing at the cost of everything else. 13 chapters in, if you are still enjoying this, hitting the like button right now is the single best thing you can do to make sure more videos like this get made. It is 1 second. It really does help on long videos like this one. Then let's keep going, because the last 2 designs are coming, and they have their own catches. That is the 13th bad design. The fish on the treadmill. The most perfectly optimized fish in the ocean, the gold standard athletic predator, that paid for its excellence by losing the ability to ever stop, and that runs every day of its life on a biological treadmill it cannot leave until it dies. Sometimes the best design is the one that cannot afford to rest. I want to play a game with you. I'm going to describe an object, and you tell me what it is. The object is roughly spherical. It is covered in every direction by long, sharp spines. The spines are rigid. They point outward, away from the center, with no apparent organization beyond the goal of being maximally unpleasant in any direction you might approach from. The object does not move, or rather, it appears not to move. If you stare at it for a long time, you might notice that the spines occasionally twitch, but otherwise the thing is essentially stationary. It does not chase. It does not flee. It does not eat anything you can see it eating. It just sits there, on the seafloor, covered in spikes, looking like someone misplaced a piece of military hardware. What is it? If you guessed an animal, you would be correct. But I want to acknowledge that this is, on first appearance, not the most obvious conclusion. Because the animal in this chapter does not really look like an animal. It looks like a hazard. It looks like a piece of equipment that fell off something. It looks like what you would find washed up on a beach and think, what is this? And is it going to hurt me if I touch it? The honest answer to both questions is yes, it is alive, and also yes, it is going to hurt you if you touch it. This is the sea urchin. And the sea urchin is, in my opinion, the funniest bad design choice in this entire video, because the sea urchin appears to have looked at the standard animal blueprint, asked the design committee what the minimum requirement was to qualify as an animal, and then submitted, in response, what is essentially a ball of weapons with no other features. Let me walk through what the sea urchin appears not to have, because the list is genuinely impressive. Problem 1. It does not have a recognizable body plan. Most animals have, at minimum, a front and a back, a head and a tail, a direction of travel, some sense of which end is the important end. The sea urchin has none of these. It is radially symmetrical, organized around a central point, with no front, no back, no head, no face. It does not have a direction it is facing because it does not really face. It just exists in all directions at once, with spines pointing every way. Problem 2. It does not have a brain in any conventional sense. The sea urchin has a nervous system, but it is decentralized, distributed around the body in a ring rather than concentrated in a central brain. There is no the urchin thinking. There is no decision-making head. There is just a small, simple, distributed nervous network running the spines and the small mouth. Problem 3. It does not move in any way you would normally call movement. The urchin has tiny tube feet that it uses to crawl very slowly across the seafloor. We are talking about movement at the pace of a slow-spreading rumor. The urchin will, over the course of an hour, possibly relocate by a few inches. Possibly, if it feels strongly about it. The urchin is not going anywhere fast. The urchin is barely going anywhere at all. Problem 4. It does not appear to have any of the standard animal features that we usually use to recognize life. No visible eyes. No mouth you can see from the outside. No legs. No fins. No tail. No fur. No scales. No feathers. The sea urchin looks, to all appearances, like an object that has been placed on the seafloor by someone who has now left. So the design summary is the most reductive in the whole video. Take a sphere, cover it in spines, set it down. That is the animal. That is the entire animal. There is essentially nothing else. No locomotion to speak of. No clever hunting strategy. No camouflage. No deception. No specialized organs that take a paragraph to explain. The sea urchin is the simplest animal we have looked at, and the simplicity is the whole design. It looks like the animal that submitted the bare minimum requirement and called it done. And here is the chapter's twist, and it is a different kind of twist than the others. Because the sea urchin is, against every reasonable expectation, one of the most successful animal designs on the planet. Sea urchins are everywhere. Cold seas, warm seas, shallow water, deep water, reefs, kelp forests, rocky shores. They are abundant in vast numbers. They have been thriving on essentially this design for hundreds of millions of years, in roughly this form, with very few significant updates. The minimal design has worked, and worked spectacularly, for an enormous span of geological time. So how does this animal, that appears to have given up on almost every standard animal feature, succeed so well? The answer is the spines, and a small, surprisingly sophisticated feeding system you cannot see from the outside. The spines first. The sea urchin's defense is essentially the entire animal. It is covered on all sides in spines that are sharp, sometimes barbed, sometimes venomous, and always profoundly unpleasant to deal with. A predator that tries to eat a sea urchin gets a mouthful of needles and a bad experience it does not forget. The urchin does not need to flee. It does not need to fight. It does not need to hide. It just needs to be such an unpleasant object to interact with that predators leave it alone. The minimal design works because the design is, in its entirety, a defensive system. Becoming too unpleasant to handle is the whole survival strategy. The urchin is essentially a passive deterrent that happens to be alive. And the feeding. This is the part that surprises people. The sea urchin has a small mouth on its underside, hidden against the sea floor, with 5 teeth arranged in a structure that scientists call Aristotle's lantern. This is a genuinely sophisticated little eating mechanism, capable of scraping algae and other growth off rocks, grinding through tough material, and even, in some species, slowly excavating into stone. The urchin's mouth is one of the more impressive small structures in the invertebrate world, and it does the entire work of feeding the animal. The urchin grazes slowly on the surfaces beneath it, eating its way across the sea floor at the pace of a slow march. It does not need to chase prey. It just needs to keep eating algae forever, while protected by the spines. So the urchin's design is the inverse of the tuna's. The tuna is the high-performance specialist trapped on a treadmill of constant motion. The urchin is the low-performance generalist that opted out of motion entirely and committed to being so unpleasant that nothing bothers it. Two completely opposite philosophies. Both successful. Both in their own way, brilliant. The urchin proves that survival does not require speed, intelligence, or trickery. Sometimes survival is just being a ball of spikes that is not worth the effort. That is the 14th bad design. The spiky mind that is, in fact, alive. A radially symmetrical, brainless, barely moving, almost featureless animal that committed entirely to becoming an unpleasant object on the seafloor, and that has succeeded for hundreds of millions of years on the simple, brutal principle that nothing wants to eat something it cannot get its mouth around without serious injury. Some animals win by running, some by hiding, some by deceiving. The urchin won by just being too annoying to deal with. We have come to the end, and before we meet the last animal, I want you to think back across this entire video for a moment. We started with the seahorse, a vertical, slow, horse-faced fish that should not work. We met the pufferfish, the round, surprised-looking animal that survives by becoming a poisonous balloon. The frogfish, a walking lump that hunts by looking like nothing. The manta ray, a flat, fragile pancake that turns out to fly. The sea slug, a soft snack that steals weapons. The catfish, a whiskered mud specialist that reads chemistry instead of light. The hammerhead, a shark with a head that looks like a manufacturing error. The crab, the sideways walking armored brawler. The cuttlefish, a soft tube that became the ocean's greatest visual fraud. The seal, the wet sleeping bag that hunts. The barracuda, the silver tube with teeth. The tuna, the perfect athlete trapped on its own treadmill. The sea urchin, the spiky mind that just refuses to be eaten. Every one of them looked on paper like a bad design. And every one of them, in practice, turned out to be either a brilliant lateral solution to a survival problem or a successful specialist that thrived precisely because of the things that looked broken. The video has been one long demonstration of the same lesson, told 15 different ways. Bad design is mostly an illusion. Most of the time, when an animal looks broken, we are just looking at it from the wrong angle. But there is one more chapter, and the last animal is going to break the pattern in a different way. Because the previous 14 animals all had something visibly weird or visibly limited about them. Some apparent flaw that the chapter could then defend. The last animal does not. The last animal does not look broken. The last animal looks instead simply too big to be clever, too enormous to be tactical, too huge to do anything precise or coordinated or subtle. And the bad design joke this time is not, "This looks broken." The joke is, how on earth does something this large pull off something this delicate? This is the humpback whale. Let me set up the design problem first, because the size really is the central issue. The humpback whale is enormous, tens of meters long, tens of tons of mass, a body so large that the practical realities of moving it through water, feeding it, coordinating it with other humpbacks, should, by any reasonable design intuition, make precision behaviors essentially impossible. The standard assumption with very large animals is that they are powerful but blunt instruments. They can do big things at big scales, but the fine work, the cooperative work, the cultural work, that is supposed to belong to smaller, faster, more agile animals. The humpback is, by all visible measures, too big to be sophisticated. And yet, I want to tell you about bubble net feeding, because it is the single best argument I know that the humpback design is doing something genuinely impossible. Some humpback populations hunt fish by cooperating in groups. They locate a school of fish, then several whales coordinate to dive beneath it. As they swim upward in a spiral, one of them releases a stream of bubbles from its blowhole, creating a rising cylindrical net of bubbles around the school. The fish, for reasons not entirely clear to us, will not swim through the bubble curtain. They become trapped inside it. The other whales contribute to the spiral and the corral. And then, in a perfectly timed coordinated strike, the whales surge upward through the middle of the bubble cylinder, mouths open, taking in enormous mouthfuls of trapped fish in a single rush. I want you to imagine the choreography of this for a second. Multiple 20-meter, 30-ton animals, communicating, coordinating, taking specific roles, executing a multi-stage hunting strategy that involves timing, bubble release, roll allocation, and synchronized lunging. The humpback is performing a tactical operation that, in human terms, you would describe as a small team of submarines executing a coordinated trap. And it is doing this not by instinct alone, but, as researchers increasingly believe, through learned behavior passed culturally from one whale to another. Bubble net feeding is not present in all humpback populations. It is found in specific groups, in specific regions, where the technique has been taught and refined over generations. Humpbacks learn this from each other. The giant is, in this sense, doing something cultural, cooperative, taught, and the songs. The males of many humpback populations produce long, complex, structured vocal sequences we call songs. The songs change over time, with whole populations gradually adopting new variations. New songs spread, sometimes across vast oceanic distances, as humpbacks pick up the songs of other populations and incorporate them into their own. This is genuine cultural transmission in the technical sense. Information passing between individuals and between populations, persisting and evolving across time through learning and imitation. The humpback is one of the few non-human animals where we are reasonably confident that real culture exists, in songs, in hunting traditions, in patterns of behavior that propagate not through genes, but through observation and learning between individuals. So here is the chapter's twist. The humpback's design looked bad in only one specific sense, the sense of, this is too big to do anything clever, and the humpback is one of the cleverest large animals on the planet. The giant is tactical. The giant is cultural. The giant is teaching its young, coordinating with its peers, refining its hunting techniques over generations, and singing songs that spread across oceans. The bad design assumption, the one that says enormous size precludes precision and cooperation, is wrong. Spectacularly wrong. The humpback is the proof. And that is the perfect note to end this whole video on, because the humpback completes the lesson the bad design framework has been building toward all along. Across 15 chapters, we have watched animal after animal that looked, by some measure, like a design failure, and revealed in each case that the apparent failure was not failure at all. The seahorse, the frogfish, the cuttlefish, the crab, the tuna, the urchin, the humpback. None of them is a bad design. Every one of them is a brilliant solution to a problem that, from the outside, we did not even understand was the problem. And here is the final synthesis. Awkward becomes elegant when you see it in its element. The seal on the beach is the joke. The seal in the water is the predator. Soft becomes dangerous when you understand what it is doing. The cuttlefish is fragile, and the cuttlefish is also the ocean's greatest visual deceiver. Slow becomes invisible. The frogfish moves so slowly that nothing reads it as alive. And huge becomes tactical. The humpback is enormous, and the humpback is also coordinating multi-whale ambushes through bubble nets and singing songs that travel across oceans. The lesson of this entire video is that there is no such thing as a bad design in nature. There are only designs we have judged from the wrong angle, in the wrong environment, with the wrong assumptions. Every animal in the ocean, everyone we laughed at on the spec sheet, is doing something that works. Sometimes brilliantly, sometimes elegantly, sometimes through brute simplicity. But always, eventually, it works, because if it did not, the animal would not be here for us to look at. Thank you for going all the way to the end of this one with me. 15 designs that should have failed, 15 designs that did not, 15 pieces of evidence that the standard for good and bad in nature is not what we think it is. If this video showed you the ocean from a slightly different angle, that is exactly what I was hoping for. And you taking the time to watch the whole thing means a lot. Subscribe if you have not yet, because the next one is already coming together. And tell me in the comments which bad design you think is the most secretly brilliant. The vertical horse-faced fish, the walking lump, the sideways crab, the spiky mine, or the giant that turned out to sing. I read every comment, and the ones from people who made it all the way to the last sentence are honestly the best part of doing this. The ocean is full of designs that should not work. Almost all of them do. That is the punchline of the whole sea. I will see you in the next one.